Welcome, friends. This is Avinash Gorakshekar, and I welcome all of you to another interesting episode of Konexio HighFlyers. As everyone is aware, Konexio HighFlyers is a program where we introduce emerging companies from emerging sectors, and we make it a point to talk to the promoters of such companies to understand their companies better. We talk to them about their company's business model, their growth journey, and their growth prospects in all. And friends, today we have got a very interesting company which is going to hit the markets very soon. The company's name is Kaushalya Logistics Limited, and we have the pleasure and privilege of having the top management team. We have Mr. Uddhav Poddar, who's the managing director of the company. Uddhavji, thank you very much for sparing your valuable time with us today. I'm pretty confident this small conversation will help us understand your companies much better for all our viewers.
Thank you, Avinaji. Thank you for having me here. I'm looking forward to this conversation.
So, Uddhavji, first question is basically, which is very elementary in nature. We would like to understand, what is the company's business model about? What are the business segments the company is into? And what is the positioning of Kaushalya now logistics in the domestic market? And just to add a little bit, how did this business journey start for you? If you could add some color and, inform our viewers, that would be great.
Sure. So currently, our company Kaushalya Logistics is into three verticals. Our main and original vertical is logistics, wherein we are basically into cement logistics. We are a third-party service provider to cement companies, and we help them in the distribution network. So once they dispatch their goods from their factory, subsequently we manage the entire show from the material comes via rail, then we get the material cleared via rake, handle it, get it moved to go down, and then do last mile delivery, do the documentation, billing, and so there is a full process that we handle. Traditionally, this was used to be called a C&F business, where cement companies would give out C&F agencies to different multiple agencies. Now it is becoming a very organized space. Earlier, it was a very mom and pop kind of business. So we have, I think, been the first mover in the industry to make it into a corporate structure and organized player. We are the only organized player doing this for large cement companies. So that is our main and core business. The second vertical is e-commerce, where we are working on a very large e-commerce platform as a seller for electronic goods. So we sell all kinds of electronic goods, whether it's hair dryer, washing machine, television, laptops, computers, all kinds of electronic goods are being sold by us. This is a vertical we started 2 years back, and we have seen exponential growth in this sector. Of course, this is e-commerce, as we know, is a emerging sector in India, and although the share of e-commerce today, even now, in the overall retail pie is only 10%, so the scope to grow here is very, very large, and that's why we see huge growth happening. The third vertical that we have entered is commercial real estate. So the idea is that both our other sectors, I mean, especially the logistics, where we've been our original business, is an absolutely asset-light model, where we have not been investing in assets but managing the entire show in a very efficient manner, and that's what our business strategy in that sector is. So, and we purposely don't invest in things like fleet, like other logistics players, because we feel those are depreciating assets and they don't really give an additional return to our company by that investment. So, we specifically wanted to have a third vertical where we could invest in stable assets which could give long-term and steady rental income to the company. So we went and invested in commercial real estate properties, which were rented out to leading tenants like Aditya Birla Group, like Tata Group with Tata Starbucks, and all leading groups like that. So which has now brought a third vertical, which is steady rental income to the company.
And if you could share with us your business journey, is this a first generation company? If I were to clearly understand.
Yeah, this is a first generation company. I started working as a C&F agent, like any other C&F agent, in 2010-11 for our first client, Dalmia Cement, which is still our primary customer. And we started with two depots, and of course, because of our efficiency and we in fact worked with the company to come out with this model. And the journey has been very nice. From two depots to we are currently at 70. We have got additional order book of 50 more depots from Dalmia Cement, so it will take us to 120 locations. And of course, then subsequently we have ventured into other verticals as well, like I explained to you. So it's been a very rewarding journey. What I would really like to say is the people who joined us in 2010-11, most of them are still with us till now. And that is our differentiator, if you ask me, because we operate in a lot of rural areas and city areas. and get trained manpower who have such in-depth knowledge of the space is what no competition doesn't have. Nobody has.
Okay, okay. I think very well articulated by you, Uddhavji. Now, Uddhavji, you mentioned we have got three different businesses. One is logistic, e-com, and commercial real estate. If you could tell us what is the breakup of these business segments as of now in the current, revenue mix for say FY23, and within these segments, obviously I understand logistics will be the main driver. The other two segments, if you could, share with us what are your growth plans? How do you plan to scale up these businesses going forward?
So I'll just take you back a couple of years also. So our overall revenue in 21 was about 35, 32 to 35 crores. It became 60 to 63 crores, and last year we did a revenue of about 630 crores. Now the major jump has happened in the 21. Our revenue was pretty much 100% from logistics, except for 1 or 2 crores from other income. And second year from 32, that revenue has jumped to about 38, 39 crores. And last year it was about 51, 52 crores, which is logistics. So even the last 3 years, logistics we have been growing at 25, 30%. And even this year, we expect, although I'm not supposed to give forward-looking numbers, but we expect similar good growth in logistics. And going forward, we expect even more growth in logistics because now we are expanding not only our customer base but various verticals within logistics going forward in logistics. So we expect further growth in the next 2-3 years. Logistics, although in terms of revenue, might not be the largest in our segment, is the most profitable segment in our business. E-commerce, of course, is like I said, very fast growing. It's a trading online trading business where the volumes are very high. And what we have been able to do differently from other people is that we have been able to manage the inventory very well. So even with very low inventory levels, we have been able to achieve very high sales, and that's our differentiator versus other players. I think other players have a lot of working capital block where we have been able to show with very limited working capital to do revenues of 600 crores. And in fact, in this year, first quarter, we've done over 500 crores of revenue in e-commerce space itself. So that I think is our differentiator there. And we see good growth happening in e-commerce business because the sector is such that their growth is very, very high. And
Exactly.
that's about it for e-commerce. And in terms of commercial real estate, that is what we are looking at is growing opportunistically. You know, that is not a core sector, I would say, but it's a balancing factor in our business. We want to, while we grow the other two segments, we want to slowly grow that segment as well, so that the stability in the company is there. We have good assets in the company. We deploy the capital to invest in good quality assets, which give good return from day one, which is like good rental income with good tenants. So if we get good strategic assets which are coming at a right price with and good tenant is available to take it, then we will go ahead and expand that sector. But it will not happen that that sector will grow and the others will not grow. They will Once those other sectors grow, this will grow parallelly with it, just to give it a sort of balancing act.
No, fine. I think understood. So, please correct me if I'm wrong. So, the basic understanding is that logistics will be the key driver, and the other two businesses obviously will grow, but logistics will be the main, driver for the company in the coming years. Now, to add this, Uddhavji, I want to ask you, like everyone is aware that logistics is very closely related to the GDP growth of the country. We are talking about 6.5% growth. Now, in your opinion, over the next say 3 to 4 years, what is the kind of opportunity for us to grow? Like today we are 138 crores without putting a number. At least in qualitative terms, if you could tell us what is the outlook, you can share with us, like how strong is the opportunity to scale up operations over the next 3 4 years, because as you are aware, logistics is a very crucial element in the in the capital formation of the country. So if you could put some thoughts on this point and clarify.
So I'll tell you. Like you rightly said, the country is growing at 6.5%, probably expecting towards 7%. So the space opportunity for logistics is very good. What differentiates us is that we are in cement space. We are the only organized player. So for the opportunity for us to grow within the cement space itself is very, 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 very good, because there is no competition for us. We are competing with absolutely mom and pop or unorganized players. So we are one level up. So it is about us how fast we can scale up. Order book is easily available. I have to put it the other way. Secondly, we are looking at expanding services for our existing clients. Thirdly, even if we are going outside cement sector, which we are planning to do now, we are planning to do not totally ad hoc different verticals, So suppose we are doing rake clearance for cement sector, right? We manage the rake. So now we are looking at doing rake management for other sectors also, because that's a space we know very well. And there are again limited organized players for that space.
Okay.
Then
Okay.
we are looking at getting into e-commerce logistics. We are already an e-commerce player. We understand that space very well. So we are looking at doing e-commerce logistics. So we are looking at growing into logistics verticals where we have good understanding of those verticals. Because logistics, like you know, is a very very large sector. So to summarize, the opportunity to grow is very very high. It is us putting deciding where we want to grow. So our first focus is going to be within sectors closer to our existing sector, where we
Exactly.
understand the business very well, so that first we grab those opportunities and then we go outside.
Okay. No, understood. I think now tell me, Uddhavji, in terms of the pricing for our services, like you said, in the logistics sector, you all cater largely to the cement sector. Well, I've got very large clients like Dalmia Bharat. Now, tell me one thing, on a yearly basis, is there a kind of contract between you and the cement companies, or it
Yeah.
depends on the, on the quantity of the freight, the cost involved? So, in what process is the pricing, decided for you between you and the customer?
So we generally sit with the client on a yearly basis, and because there are multiple variables which are there in when you decide a particular rate. Every location has a different rate, and there are variables like labor rates in that area, freight rates in that area, etc., etc. So those are factored in again every year. Annually, we do an exercise with our client where if there is a cost increase, those are explained to the client. We also see that how can we bring efficiency to the client, even though without compromising on our margins, and that exercise is again done annually. So also telling you, we charge a premium over other competition, because we are providing very value added services to our clients, and we are the only organized player with full compliances, and we have very senior people from cement industry managing the business. So we
Okay.
bring that to the table for our clients. So we charge a premium, but at the same time we make sure that the overall cost to the client does not go up. So even though they are paying a premium for our services, by bringing in efficiency, we make sure that their cost does not go up and they are competitive in their markets.
Okay. No, understood. I think very well articulated again. Now, Uddhavji, tell me one thing. You mentioned that you are one of the value-added, players in the logistic, sector for cement sector. Now, tell us exactly how will the company differentiate itself with other players? Like you said, you are one of the few players, but obviously, there is competition in every sector. So, tell me in qualitative terms, Uddhavji, how are we different from the others, and why customers prefer to work with us more better? And what is it that we offer something better to the customers, which obviously you all have been able to outperform the competition. So if you
I-
could
I'll
add to
give
that.
you I'll give you an example actually. Earlier, like I told you, we are currently operating in 70 locations across four different states. The client that we are dealing with was probably dealing with 70 different C&Fs earlier for these. So they had a battery of people just to manage the relationship and to train those different agencies and to make them understand how the business has to work. Now we have been able to scale up and bring quality talent on our side, so that work doesn't have to be done by the client. Plus, originally the cement has got a shelf life, so there is a lot of wastages and write-offs of cement because of the shelf life. So we have, by bringing in best practices and bringing in efficiency, have made sure that those go down drastically for our client. So those are major costs for the client. While that might not be included in my cost might be different. But if there is a wastage, the client is losing out on money. So so we have made sure that by the end of the year, we make sure and we show to the client that we have brought in these efficiencies by doing better management of the operations. So number
Okay.
one, they have a single entity who's working across geographies for them. So if there is any policy change, if there is anything to be done, we are managing their entire end-to-end thing. Secondly,
Okay.
even for one location, they would have multiple players. They would not have a single player for a single location. Somebody would be clearing the rake, somebody would be managing the warehouse, somebody would be doing secondary transportation. We are doing end-to-end for them. We are
Exactly.
clearing the rake, we are managing the warehouse, doing the last mile delivery, doing documentation, billing, everything for them.
Okay.
So we are the only player which does this entire end-to-end service.
So I think understood. I think very nicely explained again by you, Uddhavji. Now coming to the financials, Uddhavji, if you could share some data points for FY23, what has been the revenue, the profit, and if you could share some data points, what has been the kind of performance in FY24, so that we can understand your financial profile better.
So financial year 20 23, we did a top line of 632 crores, and our profit after tax was 7 crore 10 lakh or something around that much.
Yeah.
And EBITDA was about 14 odd crores. I don't have the exact numbers, 1390 or 1400. Yeah. For the first quarter, results are already audited for 24. We have done a top line of 550 crores plus, and our PAT is 2 crore 14 lakh. So again, the growth has happened a lot in e-commerce space. So the although the in absolute numbers our PAT has grown from, if you divide 7 crore 4 lakh to divide it by 4, it probably comes to about 1.8 or 1.7. We've done 2.14. So in absolute numbers, our PAT is growing, and we see good guidance. I can't give numbers, but like we see good growth happening FY24 as well and 25 as well. And
Oh, fine. I think understood. Now, Uddhavji, tell me one thing just for my understanding of your business. Is your business order book driven? Like, do you have a confirmed order book and then you all plan for the logistics? Or is it like on an ongoing basis? Like you said, you got a yearly contract. So is it a order book driven business? And if at all, if you could give us some idea about what kind of, order book you have, if it is possible for you to share.
actually, these are actually annual contracts, and the volume. Our order book depends on the volume that our client is able to sell from that location. So we have annual contracts, and these are not contracts which actually get terminated at the end of the year. The purpose of doing annual contracts is that at the end of the year, we both of us sit together and revise the rates. There are very, very less cases that the company or us leave any locations. Only in case of very specific issues does that happen. These are actually meant to be longer term contracts, but they are annual in nature so that the rates are revised, because there are many variables. Like I said, this is not like a simple transaction or like a rent where we can say only 5% increase every year. There could be a very drastic increase in any particular cost, and then if we have a very long-term contract, we will not, we will make a loss. So the purpose is that we sit down the table again every year and review the rates and work like that.
Okay. So, Uddhavji, one more thing which I wanted to understand, is the business stable across all the 4 quarters since you have an annual contract? Is it stable across all
It
the
is,
4 quarters, or is there some
it
seasonality in
is
the
stable,
business?
but the last quarter is always much higher volumes. Because even if you see cement company results in the last quarter are much higher volumes. So if their volumes are high, our volumes are automatically high. Our numbers go up. We are dependent on their volume. So last quarter is generally very, very high for cement companies and for us.
Okay, now coming to the average working capital cycle in our business, Uddhavji, how is the working capital cycle? What is the kind of broad duration of the working capital cycle? Do you get some advance, or is it like, once you complete the logistics services, you get cash flows, depending on certain milestones? So if you could tell us the broad working capital cycle in our business.
Like we have three verticals, I said. In e-commerce, what we've been able to do is we've been able to manage our working capital fairly effectively for the scale of business that we are doing. Of course, now to maintain that growth, we are looking at raising more money, and that's why we've come out with public issue and we are looking at raising capital. In terms of rental, it is fairly simple. The rentals come on once on a monthly basis. The investment has mostly been done already. Now the rentals are coming on a monthly basis. And now coming to logistics again, it is very different. Every contract is different, and mostly our expenses are on daily or weekly basis because we are dealing with small contractors. And unless you pay them on time, you don't get the right rate. So we make payments to our, whether it's a labor contractor or it's a transport contractor, on a daily or a weekly basis. And our payments from our client come. It depends on different geographies. It's different. Some places it is billing is once in 15 days. Sometimes it's once in 1 month, and then of course there is a period in which they take to process the bills. So that's how it works.
Okay, so basically you can say that the cash flow comes at regular intervals, but
Yeah.
broadly, I think, you could assume. I mean, at least 30 to 40 days is the normal working capital cycle. If we take a blend of all your contractors,
40,
that's what I want.
45, yeah, 45 days you can assume is an average timeline for payment cycles, because there is obviously some processing and it bill
Yeah,
goes to 3 4 different people, and then but it's regular. It's not like payments get stuck for a long time and stuff like that.
okay.
Nothing like that.
So fine.
And again, we are
Uddhavi,
dealing with
now,
again very good clients. Again, our quality of clients are very, very good. So even
exactly.
whether it is our commercial property, whether it is our logistics business, and again on that e-commerce platform, we are a diamond seller, so we get payments on time. So we always make sure that we work with quality clients so that such issues don't come. Even if you get
Exactly.
2% higher rate and you're chasing the client for money, we are not interested in doing that kind of business.
Okay. No, I think very well said, Uddhavji. This is really very important. Uddhavji, now the most important question. The company plans to go public. If you could tell us something about the capital market issue which we are planning, what is the size of the issue, what is the objective, and when does the issue open and close? If you could, share these details for our viewers.
So the issue is opening tomorrow. The size of the issue is approximately 36.6 crores on the higher side and about 35 odd crores on the lower side. 71 to 75 is the share pricing. And out of 36 crores, we are doing about 10 crores, 10, 11 crores for OFS, and balance 25 crores is fresh equity into the company. The object of the issue primarily is to raise capital for growth, to sustain our growth. We are looking at expanding all our verticals, and we need capital to grow the businesses and to sustain the growth. I mean, to sum it up, a very limited amount of money is going into repayment of certain unsecured loans, and otherwise it's all for working capital and for corporate purposes.
So fine. Now, Uddhavji, one interesting question which is also very important. From the new investors' point of view, you all have managed to create such a good company over the last so many years. Now, new investors are going to become growth partners in your company. They're going to join you in your growth journey. I mean, as a promoter, who has started this business as a first generation effort, what would be your broad message to them? Because everybody wants to put money and earn a little bit of returns, from listed companies. So, from your side, if you could put some message to them which could possibly help them in the longer term.
So I'll tell you, we are in two, three verticals, especially two verticals which are in a very, very nascent stage of growth overall in India. So if you see cement sector is, because of the infrastructure pushed by the government, is growing at a very hefty pace. Number two, there's a lot of consolidation happening in that space. So large corporates, very, very large corporates have entered that space and have expressed their desire to pump in more money into the space. So that sector is growing really well. We are poised to grow because we, like I explained to you, are one of the very few, are probably the only organized player in that space, handling the kind of business that we are doing. There could be somebody who's doing transportation independently, but in the overall space, nobody is really doing it. So
Exactly.
that's, yeah. And secondly, e-commerce, again, I think we have seen globally what is happening. E-commerce is growing very fast. Even in India, e-commerce is growing really fast. We are working with one of the top platforms, e-commerce platforms, and we are one of the top sellers already for them in a short period of 2 years' time. So I see that business also growing very, very fast. Thirdly, our third vertical is commercial real estate, where we acquire properties very strategically and opportunistically. So we are only looking at acquiring properties which are very, very strategic, opportunistic, and where we get good return on ROI. And I think the key thing in that is acquiring the right property. So I don't know if you know, but we have in our group we also have exposure into real estate. So we have personally good understanding of that space. So that brings us knowledge to select the right property.
No, fine. I think Uddhavji, last question now. Every business has got certain risk attached. I think we saw COVID, which was one of the most pandemic kind of reasons the sector suffered. But typically in our business, Uddhavji, what is the broad risk in our business and how effectively has the company managed to counter this risk? If you could share this point, which is very important for long term sustainability.
So I think the biggest situation where we all felt where we were uncertain about our business was, like you rightly said, was COVID. Thankfully for us, in the COVID period, cement we saw very good growth. Number two, e-commerce saw really good growth. So those two businesses, I think the only risk that we have is, unless India sees a major economical downturn and the economy goes down, I don't see those two particular sectors, facing any headwinds. The third sector about commercial real estate, again, unless we don't, the only thing is acquiring the right property. If you acquire good property in real estate, strategic locations, you will not have a long-term problem. You will always make good, because like the properties we have acquired today, we have acquired and we have rented out at suppose X price. We have tenants who are wanting to pay much higher rental now to us already in period of 1 year time, because the quality of location is such. So if you acquire the right property, and I think so, the risk in that is not acquiring good properties, and the general risk, of course, is the economy. If the economy tanks, then all of us can be in some sort of soup.
So I think very rightly mentioned by you, Uddhavji. In fact, it was a pleasure talking to you. Thank you very much for your valuable
Thank you,
time
Abhinav.
and best
Thank you for
wishes to
having me.
you, the entire management team. and best wishes for your forthcoming public issue. Thank you.
Thank you so much. It was a pleasure to be on your show.